The following video clips were created by the Tertiary Education Commission from selected 2010 Pūtea Arapiki Ako projects for teachers and kaiako who work with tertiary students in Tauira and want to learn more about the perspectives, views and understanding they bring with them. These resources complement the learning progressions for adult literacy and numeracy by suggesting links to Mātauranga Māori and Pacifica worldviews. The approach taken to teaching and learning adult literacy and numeracy uses a three-point model: knowing the demand, knowing the learner, and knowing what to do. Whakamanawa. In this project, Whanganui PTE Training for You used online publishing to help young students gain the English unit standards they needed for tertiary study. The aim was to make writing more appealing to students who had turned off English by making it a real-world publishing activity. Online publishing has given students a place to display their work, express their views, and to build on their confidence. The project involved 15 learners across two programs. Half the learners were Māori. Students were encouraged to write about their own families and growing up in New Zealand. The project has been an outstanding success. All the students progressed 2 steps along the learning progressions. So what did the project set out to achieve?
So the project set out to aid students who were studying English units and who were looking at their own history and looking at who they were. So it was about knowing themselves, and it was helping the tutors to know the learner as well.
How much of a need was there for this project?
Traditionally, we found our learners had a lot of difficulty with the writing process. They found it quite an insular process, and they only really focused on the marker. They didn't really think about the audience apart from the marker. So the need was for the students to realise that writing is not just a lonely process, and that when you're writing you need to think about your audience.
So we really wanted to engage the students. So this was one of the reasons why we decided to make it a web-based project. We knew that youth had no problem in writing online, and we knew that youth were excited by the idea of getting on a computer and communicating, and that they do that actually very, very well. They feel at home there. So they also realised that there was an audience out there, because they communicate with audiences all the time online. So one of the reasons why the program was so successful is that they were comfortable with going online.
And they sort of, a lot of the younger ones said it was quite similar to Facebook, so that really appealed to them.
And we found a number of the students originally where they had written a piece of text or written a response, a writing response, that when they went to put that online, they actually endeavoured to re-edit and improve their writing skills, because suddenly it wasn't just for the marker, it was actually for their peers, it was actually for families, it was for other people that were going to read it, and they wanted it to be very good.
Tell us more about the project. How did you go about it?
We designed a pilot, and we started to put some things online, and the students got involved, and we got feedback from the students. So some things didn't work very well, and some things we found that the students were reticent about being involved, and though the young ones wanted to jump in, some of the older students were a bit shy, I guess, about doing that. So we found that the younger students really affied the older students and encouraged them, and it was that process of ako that really made the project successful in the end.
How would you measure the success of this project?
I think that students became very confident, and students began to share their stories, and other students were very supportive of their stories. So suddenly students found that their learning was not only just about literacy and numeracy, it was about finding their place in the world and feeling confident. So some of our young students actually gave speeches about how their lives had actually had a lot of challenges in them, and how they had struggled perhaps with their learning and their literacy and numeracy, and how through this project they found a new way of being, I suppose you'd say.
And they also related to some of their own cultural experiences. We had one student and she discovered that her grandparents had actually been through an arranged marriage. She never knew that before. We did a reading and we wrote something about it. And then she went home and discussed it with her family and that came out. So there was lots of learning about yourself and your culture. So that was...
And it also gave the tutors an opportunity to learn about the students as well. So they got to know the learner quite personally, and they got to know their stories, and that enabled a better tutor-student relationship to be created.
So what ways are learners benefiting from this approach?
It was a very supportive environment, and I think that the students really felt supported in their learning. I think that they really had a sense that other students actually cared about them as people and as learners, and they found a voice. So some of our students actually gave speeches to their families about what they had learnt through their lives and what the learning experience had led them to realise about their future, what future they had.
What were the highlights of the project for you?
Highlight for me would have probably been just seeing the pride in the students' work, the pride they took in their work. They actually could do it. That's what they said. I've never written an essay before, and now I know I can do it, and I can go on to a higher level study. So that was probably my highlight.
And some of the students have actually gone on now into tertiary study at a level that they didn't think that they were able to do. So that was great.
So what advice would you give to others out there who want to follow this amazing example?
I think that it's very important to build the trust in the beginning, trust between the tutor and the students, and also the trust as a group. And yeah, just the sky's the limit really. The students realise that they're capable of great things. So yeah.
The other thing about it was that we thought it might be quite challenging for the tutors to get on board with the technical side of putting things up on a website, but our web designer was very friendly and found very easy ways, and we didn't find it difficult at all to do that at all. And also the other thing was that the students were quite keen to be involved in putting things on the website, and in some cases it was the students teaching and helping the tutors with what was going up on the websites, with ideas and things like that. So it was very collaborative, which I think was that was great. That really helped the sense of trust to build as well.
Now, how did you link the project to the learning progressions?
Planning and composing was one of the progressions that we noticed a big difference with the students' knowledge. Most of the students started on a step 2 or 3. We mapped the students' work ourselves at the beginning, and then at the end they learnt all the skills they needed, and they were mostly coming out at a 4 or 5, so that was a huge gain. And also purpose and audience, because the students were realising that there is other people involved when they write, that they need to write thinking of an audience, and they were putting their work online, so that came across in their progression steps as well. Most of them went up to about a 5.
So how would you summarise the overall difference that this project has had on your learners?
I think the fact that their writing improved, which enabled them to go on to further study, and yeah, just their confidence, knowing that they can do it. That was a real big benefit for the students.
And that they could write about themselves, and it was okay to write about themselves. It was okay for them to share their story. They didn't have to share a story that they thought tutors wanted to share, because it was about them. And I think, as Chelsea said in one of her speeches, she said, I didn't know what to write about. Oh, well, I'll write about me, because that's what I know what to write about. And that was a fantastic speech that she did, and she wrote that, and that's actually on the website.
And also the students got to see the skills of each other, the talents of each other. There were some students that are very quiet and probably not the sort to show their work to others, but when it was up on the site, then the other students could see and comment, and that was really good for building the morale of the group and also self-esteem.